Much love and respect. Thanks for tuning in once again. Quick video today, little throwback for the new people and anybody who has forgotten previous videos. I get a lot of comments of Queen Califa just being a fictional story, a romance from this Spanish guy in the 1500s. But we have gone over that already. We've proven that her legend is a lot older than just a 1500s romance book. We're going to go over the information again real quick, showing you that this so-called romance was inspired by many legends, centuries old, and by Columbus and the early explorers that were coming to the Americas and going back with their stories. Again, just want to remind you, we have many videos on Queen Califa. We've shown her existence in 1200 AD in Roman law books, showing you the original sources where her story is in there. So it's not a 1500s romance. We also have videos with other primary sources talking about warrior women that early explorers were encountering in South America and the Caribbean. Make sure to check all these videos out. So again, today we're just going to go over briefly where they say they got the story from. And the same author is going to let you know that he got it from earlier accounts, a story that was already centuries old. We're also going to get what Hernan Cortez said. He didn't get it from a romance book. He got it from the American Indians, the story of Queen Califa. We're going to get all that right now real quick. So I hope you guys enjoy. It's called Chronicles of Early California, 1535 to 1846. And it's called Lands of Promise and Despair. All right, we're page 9 of this book, and it's called 1510, The Invention of California, by Garcia Rodriguez de Montalvo. And it says here, the name California first appeared in a work published in Seville in 1510 by Garcia Rodriguez de Montalvo, entitled The Labors of the Very Brave Knight Esplandian. All right, so we already got in the other journal that the name California was actually around way before that. All right, but we're just gonna read this just for reference, right? It says Rodriguez de Montalvo, who was born in the middle of the 15th century. He participated in the final phases of the Reconquista and was knighted for his service at Alhama de Granada in 1482. All right, so I think the Reconquista was when they took back Spain from the Moors. All right. By the 1490s, he was hard at work on his 5-volume set, Amadis de Gaula, one of the first of many published books of fiction on the themes of chivalry and courtly love, which so captivated the Spanish reading public during the age of exploration and conquest. The first 4 volumes represented Rodriguez Montalvo's reworking of oral legends that were centuries old. The 5th volume, whose composition was begun in the 1490s and which was partly influenced by the tales brought back to Spain by Columbus and the early explorers, was Rodriguez Montalvo's own creation. All right, so this is very important what we just read there. So remember, they're giving this guy the credit for the source for the word California. He made it up in his romance about Queen Califa we're going to read. But look what it says here. It says that this 5th volume, where they actually got this story of Queen Califa, whose composition was begun in the 1490s. Look at this, 1490s. Which one? 98, 96, 97, 94, before or after Columbus went to America? Had to be after, because 1490s, he was here 1492. There's a whole 8 years thereafter that it could have been composed, right? So it says, was partly influenced by the tales brought back to Spain by Columbus and the early explorers. Was Rodriguez Montalvo's own creation. So this composition that Montalvo did, again, this was his own creation, basically inspired by tales brought back by Columbus. I wonder what Columbus told him. All right, so now we're in this basically scholarly, journal. It's called The Transactions and Precedents of the Geographical Society of the Pacific, and it's volume 6, part 1. This is from 1910. All right. Again, the contents of this is the origin and meaning of the name California, Califia, the queen of the island of California. All right. This is by George Davidson, PhD, President of the Geographical Society of the Pacific. Even when the name California is traced to its first appearance in the exploits of Esplandian, there is no explanation offered about its origin. All right, so we've known that they say it comes out of that, but we know that it was already there before that. We already read this in the other books. All right, so even he's letting you know, okay, well, yeah, this dude put it in this romance this time, but where did he get the name California? How did he come up with it and associate it to a woman, an Amazonian, on a distant island? All right, that's what he's saying. It doesn't offer no explanation to its origin. But from Theo H. Hiddle commences by saying the first account of California that is found in old records represented it as an island rich in pearls and gold. It was said to lie at a distance of 10 days' journey from the province of Cihuatán, and to be inhabited by women only. All right, so I want to bring you to this book, which is the Letters of Cortez, so we can get an account from Cortez himself. This is actually what he wrote to the Emperor Charles V. So this is a collection of 5 letters, all right, that he wrote to Charles V. This is a book I got. It's called Letters of Cortez, the 5 letters of relation from Fernando Cortez, another name. You might know him as Hernando, but it's actually another way, Fernando Cortez to the Emperor Charles V. Translated and edited with biographical introduction and notes compiled from original sources, all right, original sources by Francis Augustus MacNutt in 2 volumes, all right, and this is in volume 2 that I got here. I got both volumes 1 and 2. We're going to page 177 in this book, and we're going to go down to the part where we're talking about in our video, which is Queen Califa, right, that lived in a mythical island full of women. All right, so we're in a part of the book with Cortez is telling Charles V, right, that how he's conquering all these provinces, and even though they lost men and they're conquering them one by one, and he's doing so good and all that, right? He says, namely, the province of Aliman, Colimante, and Ceguatan. This is in Mexico, all right? He says what he found there, which was rich in gold and pearls, right? Very rich in gold and pearls in Ceguatan, but also that they were bringing back stories from there. All right, so let me just start right here. It says, in his description of these provinces, there was very news of very good port on that coast, which greatly pleased me because they are few. He likewise brought me an account of the chiefs of the province of Ceguatan. All right, from the chiefs, meaning from the aboriginals there. So this is a story from the Indians there, the chiefs, the aboriginals, all right, of that province of Ceguatan, who affirmed to the Spanish, right, that there is an island. There is what? An island inhabited only by women without any men, by women without any men, an island inhabited by women without any men. This is chiefs, aboriginals telling this story to Cortez. So as I'm trying to show you here is that, as you can see, this story didn't start in a romance, in a Spanish romance. All right, so we got to dodge the hijack. All right, it's deeper than that. So we're getting a whole different source here. Now it's a local story, right? And it continues saying, and that at given times, men from the mainland visit them. If they conceive, they keep the female children to which they give birth, but the males they throw away. This island is 10 days' journey from the province, and many of them went thither and sighed, and told me also that it is very rich in pearls and gold. All right, so they're saying it's 10 days from where they are in Mexico, almost central Mexico, 10 days journey. That makes sense to go to California. About 10 days journey. Not that far. I shall strive to ascertain the truth, and when I am able to do so, I shall make a full account to your majesty. All right, so that's Cortez again, letting us know that he knew about basically Queen Califa, because he heard the story from the chiefs in Ceguatan that was passed to him from the Spaniards that were conquering over there. All right, so they already had the scoop. So again, remember, they started writing these romances, right? Montalvo wrote it because he got influenced from, Columbus when he was coming back in the 1490s, right? We already got that earlier, all right? So I just wanted to show you, right, so you can get a clear perspective. We're going to continue to talk about Cortez later on, but all right, I just wanted to show you that the source says it himself. All right, let's go back to the other book. All right, so Cortez letting you know that he didn't get the name California from a romance he read. All right, he would have wrote it right there. I mean, he wouldn't even need to write it because that would have been part of, common knowledge. Charles V would have known that because he would have given him the book, would have told him, go look for this land, right? Even though they did, they knew what they were coming to do and who they're coming to conquer. Let's not get too lost, all right? So this ain't no romance, all right? They're gonna tell you, yeah, we figured it out. It came out of a fictional romance because they try to say romance is a fiction. They try to throw that suggestion at us. But if you really study the etymology of romance, you really study this. These are all basically inspired by real history. Most of these romances, this is just the way they told the story, right? In the play. Such was the strange story brought to Mexico from Colima by Gonzalo de Sandoval and transmitted by Cortez to the Emperor Charles V. All right, so this is what Hernando Cortez, was telling Emperor Charles V, all right, who also invaded the Incas. In the latter part of the year 1524, he adds in a footnote, the account is contained in the Carta Cuarta de Relación, dated October 15th, 1524. Francisco de Orellana's chronicler, the Dominican Fray Gaspar de Carvajal, transplanted the fable to regions of the Amazon River in the wild search for El Hombre Dorado, or the Golden Man. Not El Dorado, like a place. It actually was a person. In 1522, Cortez sent Gonzalo de Sandoval to succor Cristobal de Olid, who had gone to Colima, and from him we have the report of a very rich island, peopled with Amazons, 10 days' journey from Colima. This legend appears in the fourth letter of Cortez to the Emperor Carlos V, dated October 15th, 1524. I reporting women warriors, an island of women warriors in America. That's what he's saying. In 1529, a large expedition left Mexico to continue the discoveries of Olid and Sandoval, but especially to reach the island. In the Historia de Nueva España, escrita por su esclarecido conquistador Hernan Cortez, aumentada con otros documentos, all right, augmented with other documents. So they're talking about this book that Hernan Cortez wrote, all right, because this story is given in detail. As a matter of history, it eventually killed the legend of the Amazon. We read that earlier, how Hernan Cortez mentions the island of California peopled by women warriors. So it killed the fact, like it debunked that it was a legend, is basically what he's saying. Eventually killed the legend of Amazon as a matter of history. All right, this was in detail as a matter of history. It eventually killed the legend of the Amazon, the legend. It was real. The belief in the Amazons was not confined to the conquerors of Mexico. It preceded their advent and was extended to both the Americas. It says Columbus heard of the Amazons on his first voyage. In his letter of March 4, 1493, and speaking of the Caribs, he says, they are the same who have intercourse with the women on the first island, which is found on the voyage from Spain to the Indies, on which no men live. These do not follow any womanly occupations, but use bows and arrows of cane, like those mentioned above, and cover, and arm themselves with brazen plates, of which they have many. Had women warriors, they had brazen plates, they fought bows and arrows. It was mostly women. So there was groups of these, it seems like there was groups of these Amazons everywhere. The Americas, all right? The legend appears first in the fourth letter of Cortez to the Emperor Carlos V, or Charles V, dated October 15th, 1524. And among the reports which he, Gonzalo Sandoval, brought from that province, Colima, was an account of a very good harbor, a puerto escondido, or a hidden harbor, Acapulco, in question marks, which was found on that coast. And also he told me of the lords of the province of Guatang, that many of them asserted there was an island inhabited only by women, without any grown man among them, and that from time to time men went out to them from the mainland. When they bore daughters, they kept them, but the sons were put away. This island is 10 days' distance from the province, and many of the principal men had gone there from the province and had seen them. I was also told they were rich in pearls and gold. All right, page 114. This is from Hernan Cortez's own words to Charles V, all right, his boy. All right. And he's clearly telling you, all right, because this matches basically, we already read the story of Queen Califa, right? How they would only keep the baby, the female children, and they say they would kill the males, throw them in the water, feed them to the griffins, all right? So this story that Cortez got from the Aborigines, the people he met in Mexico, telling him, you know, that there was an island of women, matches exactly with what the Queen Califa story in Esplandian's so-called romance Spanish, you know, book or whatever. And as you guys can see, this is more than just a romance story. This was a real person. This was in the Indies. She was copper-colored, and she was a warrior queen. We got a good video coming up about the Amazon warrior women. So I wanted to do a refresh of this one real quick, just to show us more than just a European romance story. Thing regarding the Black Panther Marvel movie, and that, you know, we talked about the Jaguar warriors earlier. Now I want to talk to you about the Dora Milaje, the women warriors from the movie Black Panther, and how they are supposedly a representation of the ancient Dahomey Amazons of Africa. So let's dig into this. It says here, Dahomey Amazons. The Dahomey Amazons, or Mino, which means our mothers, were a Fan all-female military regiment of the Kingdom of Dahomey in the present-day Republic of Benin, which lasted until the end of the 19th century. They were so named by Western observers and historians due to their similarity to the mythical Amazons of ancient Anatolia and the Black Sea. So they were named Amazonians, like the fabled Amazonian women warriors. All right, they're not the actual Amazonians. You get what I'm saying? They were named due to the similarity to the mythical Amazons of ancient Anatolia and the Black Sea. It says here origin. All right, so pay attention. It says King Huegbaja, who ruled from 1645 to 1685. The third king of Dahomey is said to have originally started the group, which would become the Amazons, as a corps of elephant hunters called the Gebeto. All right, so again, when did they start? When did this warrior clan group, women warriors, when was it originally started? It says here in between 1645 to 1685. All right, so that was started after. All right, it doesn't go any more ancient than that. So they're not referring to the ancient Amazonian warriors that we had taught about in Greek mythology and legends, right? But look at the word Amazonians. Where does this word come from, Amazonians? If you don't know, we get the story of the Amazonian warriors mostly from Greek mythology, and it says here, since the epics of the Homeric poets, there have been references to mysterious and frightening stories of the Amazons. In the Iliad, composed around the 8th century BC, the Amazons were referred to as man-like seasoned fighters. Man-like seasoned fighters. The implication is that in war, they were a match for men, and in terms of their prowess, physical strength, and courage. The Amazons appear in other Greek myths, such as the adventures of Heracles and Theseus. Herodotus recorded detailed information, possibly spurious, but nevertheless fascinating, about this tribe of women. In his account, the Amazons were presented as horse riders, skilled with the bow and arrow, deft with the spear, and ignorant of traditional women's work.
Right? So we're taught that this is a fable, this is a legend, it's just mythology. But where do they get these legends and mythology from? You know they hijack the aboriginal truth. Because as it says here, it says the Amazons, the mythological Amazons, a kingdom of fierce warrior women, had fired European imaginations since the days of antiquity. Many of the conquistadors and explorers were on the constant lookout for legendary things and places. Christopher Columbus claimed to have found the Garden of Eden, and that's in the Orinoco when he got there, I believe on his third or fourth voyage. He said that this must be coming, this river Orinoco, from the terrestrial paradise. And Juan Ponce de Leon's search for the fountain of youth, which has already talked about that, right, are but two examples. As they made their way along the river, Orellana and his men heard tell of a kingdom of women and decided they had found the legendary Amazons. They believed, based on accounts extracted from natives along the way, that the mighty kingdom of the Amazons was a few days inland and that the river villages were Amazon vassal states. On one occasion, the Spanish saw women battling alongside men in one of the villages they raided. These they assumed must be the Amazons, according to Father Gaspar de Carvajal, whose eyewitness account survives today. The women were nearly naked, fair-skinned warriors who fought fiercely and who shot a bow so hard as to drive an arrow deeply into the wood of the Spaniard's raft. Amazons in America by William Bond. The first reports of Amazon warriors in America comes from Christopher Columbus on March 4, 1493. Columbus wrote that he had encountered women warriors on the island of Martinique. He also claimed they covered themselves with copper plates and used bows and arrows made of sugar cane. This story is supported by Alfonso Ulloa, who accompanied Columbus on all four of his voyages to the New World. Also wrote about the women warrior of Martinique in his book Historia del Señor Don Fernando Colombo. In this book he wrote that the locals claimed that the island of Martinique was the only populated by women. Men from other islands would only come to the island at certain days of the year to collect boys and would bring the boy up. The Spanish also reported other islands called Las Mujeres, which means women in Spanish, and Consumel, where again women warriors were seen. Consumel is in Mexico. Unfortunately, these early Caribbean people were killed, raped, and enslaved by the Spanish conquistadors. Amazons were also reported by the Spanish in California, right? Queen Califa, California, right? Or Queen Sheba, California, the emblem of America. Again, so the Amazons were also reported by the Spanish in California. Unfortunately, these reports are very controversial because not only were these tribes ruled by women, they were also black. Again, not only were these tribes ruled by women, they were also black. All right, again, emblem of America shows the Queen Califa, right? Supposed to be an allegory, but it's actually representing the black nations, so-called black nations, the black Californians, the aboriginals of California. When the Spanish first came to California, they found two races of people, the Indian people with racial features similar to Chinese, Japanese, Philippines, and black Amazons. All right. Up until 1862, the origin of the name California was a mystery until scholars discovered a novel written in 1521 by Garcia Ordonez de Montalvo, the book called The Exploits of the Very Powerful Cavalier Esplandian, son of the excellent King Amadis of Gaul. Within this book was the story of Queen Califa, an Amazon queen. So it seems that when the Spanish first began to explore the northwest coast of America and discovered tribes of black Amazon women, they called the place California after this fictional Queen Califa. Fictional, right? But we know better. Now, the idea of black people in America before the Europeans discovered it is very controversial, but we've already debunked all that. We know the truth, right? The foundational truth. Who were the copper-colored tribes of America. Yet archaeologists have discovered bodies of people different to that of the Asiatic Native Americans. In Brazil, a female skull was discovered in Lucia having a long and narrow skull that was 12,000 years old. The same is true in Mexico. In Penan, another woman's skull was found of a similar type, 13,000 years old. What is even more controversial about all these skulls is that they're very much the same as Australia, Aborigines or African Bushmen. So if that is the case, what happened to these people? The black people in California just didn't suddenly disappear. They were later reported by the French and English explorers. The problem is that as black slaves from Africa were imported into America, they were confused in the minds of the European settlers with the native black people. Again, as black slaves from Africa were imported into America, they were confused in the minds of the European settlers with the native black people. As these people had no voice in the white man's history, their origins were obscured and forgotten. Okay? And until now, we're relearning, we're remembering, we're waking up, right? All right, let's continue. In the book, The Discovery of the Large, Rich, and Beautiful Empire of Guyana, or Guyana with a Y, right? With a relation of the great and golden city of Manoa, which the Spaniards call El Dorado, performed in the year 1595 by Sir Walter Raleigh. It says here, with regard to the account of the Amazons, it is not given us from personal observation, but as a report received from Indians, and current at the period we Raleigh wrote in his Guyana voyage, and which even Condamine, the French academician, considered probable. A dozen many testimonies in its favor in a discourse delivered before the French Academy. The account of a tribe of Amazons is almost coeval with the discovery of America. Christopher Columbus was told that the small island of Madanino or Matinino, Montserrat, was inhabited by warlike women. And you get that account in many different books, all right? Montserrat. Orellana, in his Descent of the Marañon, was cautioned at the mouth of the Napo by an old chieftain to beware of the warlike women, and asserts that he afterwards met female fighting in the ranks of men. Hernando de Ribeira, the follower of Cabeza de Vega, the conquistador of Paraguay, asserts in 1545 that he heard a nation of Amazons who lived on the western side of a large lake, which was poetically called the Mansion of the Sun, because that orb sang in these traditions. The missionary Gili heard from an Indian of the Quaqua tribe that the Aike Binanos, literally the women living alone, inhabited the banks of the Cuchivero, which falls into the Orinoco opposite the island of Taran, between Caycara and Alta Gracia. Condamine further adduces the testimony of two Spanish governors of the province of Venezuela, Don Diego, Francisco with a question mark, Portales and Don Francisco Torralba, which agreed in substance that a tribe of warlike women dwelt in the interior of Guyana. It is, however, extraordinary that if the tradition originated with Europeans, it was not only still in existence at the time of Condamine's voyage, but is even now current among all the Indian tribes who have had intercourse with the Caribs. The Indians of the lower Corentine, of the Essequibo, and the Rupununi declared to us in the gravest manner during our travels in these regions that the separate hordes of females still live on the upper part of the Corentine in a country called Marawone. The accounts we received respecting the country they inhabited were accompanied by such details that the tradition assumed some probability. Alright, they're saying some probability. This is real. These are facts. It would, however, be unjust to condemn Raleigh's proneness to a belief in their existence, when we find that even Southey, the learned historian of Brazil, makes his remark, "Had we never heard of the Amazons of antiquity, I should without hesitation believe in those of America. Their existence is not the less likely for that reason, and yet it must be admitted that the probable truth is made to appear suspicious by its resemblance to a known fable." Again, this is not a fable. The Amazons are from the Amazons in America, warlike female groups, and this is before the 1600s, before the Dahomey Amazonians of Africa. And just one more thing, it says here, the journal of Christopher Columbus, during his first voyage, 1492-93, and the documents relating to the voyages of John Cabot and Gaspar Corte Real from the Haliox Society. And it says here, on Tuesday, 15th of January, the admiral now wished to depart, for there was nothing to be gained by further delay after these occurrences, and the tumult with the Indians. Today he had heard that all the gold was in the district of the town of Navidad, belonging to their highness, and that in the island of Carib there was much copper, as well as in Matinino. The intercourse at Carib would, however, be difficult, because the natives are said to eat human flesh. Their island would be in sight from thence, and the admiral determined to go there, and it was on the route and thence to Matinino, which was said to be entirely peopled by women without men. He would thus see both islands, and Columbus himself said on 4th March 1493 that these women warriors of old Martinique covered themselves with brazen plates and used bows and arrows of cane. These Amazons have many of these plates. Alfonso Ulloa, a companion of Columbus on the famous voyages, wrote in his Historia del S. D. Fernando Colombo that the admiral believed that the Indians Caribs told him of the Amazons of Matanino, Matrimonio, or Martinique, because he saw the spirit and strength these women displayed. Ulloa also makes a significant comment, not that he appreciated the significance of the female cults of lunar worship practiced by these West Indian Amazons. Talking about West Indian Amazonians. So we have here Anacaona, golden flower. She was from Haiti. It says this is around 1490. That's how she, I guess, presumably looked in 1490. Anacaona was one of the highest caciques or chief, katzin. Remember what that means. It's Hebrew for chief too. Cacique, katzin. Anacaona again was one of the highest caciques or chief who possessed the island of Hispaniola. When the Spaniards settled there, her date of birth and date of death are both unknown. She is a significant icon in early Haitian history, the primordial founder of Haiti, and she is considered to be the first Haitian hero. She is revered and immortalized in the intertwining histories of both Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Her name, Arawak Anacaona, means golden flowers. She married Kaonabo. So let's remember Anacoa because it says here Anacoa became chief of Jaragua. After her brother's death, her husband Kaonabo, suspected of having organized a recent attack on La Navidad, a Spanish settlement on northwestern Hispaniola, was captured by Alonso de Ojeda and shipped to Spain, dying in a shipwreck during the journey. As many other Taino leaders died on Spanish ships away from their native lands. So who got enslaved and sent in ships? Indians, Native Americans. Future video, I'll show you the transatlantic slave trade where it started. The Tainos, being ill treated by the conquerors, revolted and made a long war against them. In 1503, during a meeting of 80 caciques, including Anacaona, the Spanish governor Nicolas de Ovando ordered the meeting house to be set on fire to burn them alive. Similar to what centuries later occurred to Rigoberta, Menchu's family in Guatemala, Cacica Anacaona and her Taino noblemen were arrested, all accused of conspiracy for resisting occupation and executed. Prior to her execution, Anacaona was offered clemency if she would give herself as concubine to one of the Spaniards which was common in that area. Standing with her fellow Tainos in solidarity, the Caribbean indigenous female leader, Cacica, shows execution over colluding with the Spanish enemy, her refusal cementing her legend. Anacaona remained rebellious and independent until her violent public death. Because Anacaona refused the sexual offer of the Spanish intruders, while others were shot, Anacaona was executed by hanging. She was only 29 years old. It's really, really, I'm going to say fucked up what happened to the ancestors here of America, and this female warrior. This is before the 1600s. All right, this is a real Amazonian, right? From the fables of Greek. You can see this is not a made-up story. She's part of history, a real character, a female warrior, a West Indian Amazonian. When we're talking about fables and Amazonians, Greek legends, we're talking about ancient times. And when we're talking about the true old world, you know we're talking about America.
Thanks for tuning in again. Pura vida, mi gente. Awa.